Welcome back to Untold Revenge Files. Today, the story you're about to hear takes place in Ridgemont, Colorado. My name is Maya Sinclair. I'm 34 years old, and the night my mother publicly called me our family's failure turned out to be the beginning of everything changing. The engagement party was held at the Pinecrest Mountain Lodge, a venue that cost more than my first car. Crystal chandeliers hung from exposed wooden beams. Servers in white gloves circulated with champagne. My brother Trevor was getting engaged to his girlfriend of 2 years, and my parents had pulled out every stop to celebrate their golden child. I almost didn't come. For as long as I could remember, I'd been the family afterthought. Trevor was the athlete, the charmer, the one who got standing ovations at dinner for getting a B on a test. I was the quiet one who got straight A's and was told not to brag. Trevor got a new car at 16. I got a lecture about managing expectations. When he dropped out of college to find himself, my parents funded a gap year in Europe. When I got a full scholarship to study finance, my mother said, "Well, someone has to be the practical one." I'd built a career as a financial turnaround consultant, the person companies call when they're circling the drain and need someone to pull them back from the edge. I've saved businesses, protected jobs, restructured debts that seemed impossible. None of it mattered to my family. What they didn't know was that I'd already saved this engagement party from disaster. 3 weeks before the event, the venue had called Trevor's fiancée in a panic. The deposit was overdue. The caterer had flagged billing irregularities. My mother, who had insisted on handling everything, had somehow created a financial mess that threatened to cancel the whole celebration. The fiancé called me sobbing at midnight, and I spent the next week quietly renegotiating vendor contracts, catching inflated invoices, and wiring $12,000 of my own money to cover deposits my mother had forgotten. Nobody thanked me. Nobody knew. And honestly, I'd made peace with being invisible. I just wanted my brother to have his moment. But my mother had other plans. The party was in full swing when I felt her hand clamp around my elbow. Diane Sinclair was 58, impeccably dressed, and had the kind of smile that never quite reached her eyes. She was a senior operations manager at Maxwell Industries, one of the largest logistics firms in the region, and she wore her position like armor. "There you are," she said, her voice carrying that particular sweetness that always preceded something cruel. "Come with me. There's someone you simply must meet." She steered me through the crowd toward a distinguished man in his 60s. Silver hair, kind eyes, a quiet presence that suggested he didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I recognized him from business journals. Theodore Maxwell, founder and CEO of the company where my mother had worked for 15 years. "Theodore," my mother said, her voice rising so nearby guests could hear, "I want you to meet someone." Before I tell you exactly what she said next, tell me, what time is it where you are right now, and where are you watching from? I'm really curious to see how far this story will travel. My mother's smirk widened. She gestured toward me like I was an exhibit in a museum of disappointments. "This," she announced, "is our family's failure. My daughter Maya." The words hit like a physical blow. I felt my face flush, my chest tighten. Nearby, conversations paused. People turned to look. My father appeared at my mother's side, nodding. "Every family has one, right? The one who never quite figured it out." Trevor drifted over, champagne in hand. "We keep hoping she'll surprise us, but—" He shrugged, letting the sentence hang. Laughter rippled through the nearby guests. My mother basked in it, that satisfied smile spreading across her face. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Every insecurity I'd ever felt crystallized into this single, humiliating moment, served up as entertainment for strangers. But Theodore Maxwell wasn't laughing. He was studying me, really looking, the way someone examines a puzzle they're trying to solve. His expression was unreadable, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. Then he spoke. Softly. So softly that only my mother and I could hear. "Diane," he said, "I'd like you to report to my office first thing tomorrow morning." The color drained from my mother's face. Her smirk vanished. Of course, Theodore. Is everything—" "First thing," he repeated. Then he turned to me and his voice warmed. "Ms. Sinclair, it's a genuine pleasure to finally meet you. We'll talk soon." He walked away, leaving my mother frozen and me utterly confused. I didn't stay for the rest of the party. I couldn't. I drove home in a blur, my hands shaking on the steering wheel, my mind replaying the moment over and over. Our family's failure. The words echoed like a curse. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering why I kept trying, why I kept showing up, why I kept hoping that maybe this time things would be different. I had no idea that my mother's boss had just set something in motion that would expose secrets years in the making and change everything I thought I knew about my family. The days after the party were suffocating. My mother called twice, not to apologize, but to complain that Theodore Maxwell had been cold to her and that I should have been more gracious about her joke. My father texted to say I was being dramatic. Trevor sent nothing at all. I threw myself into work, the way I always did. My clients didn't care about my family dynamics. They cared about results, and I was very, very good at results. It was Thursday afternoon when my assistant knocked on my door. "Ms. Sinclair, there's a Theodore Maxwell here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says you'll want to hear what he has to say." I straightened in my chair, confused. "Send him in." Theodore Maxwell entered my modest office like he owned it. Not arrogantly, but with the quiet confidence of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. He carried a worn leather folder under his arm. "Ms. Sinclair," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Thank you for seeing me without notice." "Mr. Maxwell, I'm honestly not sure why you're here. If this is about my mother, it's about you." He set the folder on my desk and opened it. Inside was a financial restructuring plan, yellowed with age, covered in my handwriting. "Recognize this?" My breath caught. That's from 15 years ago, the Hartley Logistics crisis, which was my company, operating under a subsidiary name to protect the brand during near bankruptcy. He smiled. "You were 22 years old, fresh out of college. A friend of a friend recommended you. You spent 3 weeks analyzing our operations, developed this restructuring plan, and refused to accept payment because you said learning was compensation enough." I remembered. It had been my first real consulting project, an act of youthful idealism that my professors had called foolish. "I kept this plan for 15 years, Theodore continued. "Referenced it during 2 more restructurings. It saved my company, Ms. Sinclair. It saved 300 jobs and my family's legacy. I've been wanting to thank you properly ever since." My throat tightened. I had no idea. "No, you didn't, because you did the work and walked away without needing recognition. That's rare." He paused, his expression growing serious. "Which brings me to the less pleasant reason for my visit." He explained that Maxwell Industries was conducting an internal audit. Routine initially, until patterns emerged. Expense reports that didn't add up. Credit taken for work done by junior analysts. Personal purchases charged to company accounts. "Your mother," Theodore said carefully, "has been flagged for serious misconduct. Over $110,000 in questionable transactions over 4 years, and evidence suggesting she took credit for a major efficiency initiative that was actually developed by a young analyst she later helped push out of the company." The room tilted. My mother. A thief, a credit stealer. All while calling me the family failure. "I'm telling you this," Theodore continued, "because I'm offering you a consulting contract, a significant restructuring project with full executive authority and substantial compensation. I trust your integrity, Miss Sinclair. I've trusted it for 15 years. I accepted. What else could I do? This was the opportunity I'd been building toward my entire career, but the fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days later, my mother showed up at my apartment unannounced. Her composure was cracked, mascara slightly smudged, hands clutching her purse like a lifeline. "You have to help me," she said, pushing past me into the living room. "You work with these corporate types. You know how audits work. You need to tell them I was set up. Tell them the numbers were accidents. Tell them what, Mom?" I stood by the door, arms crossed. "Tell them to ignore evidence of fraud?" "It's not fraud, she waved her hand dismissively. "Creative accounting. Everyone does it. You just need to vouch for me. Say you reviewed the numbers. Say they're legitimate. You want me to lie, to commit fraud myself, to protect you. I want you to finally be useful to this family. There it was, the truth stripped of pretense. My friend Rachel, who'd been texting me throughout this chaos, had asked me the question that cut through everything. Would you accept this treatment from anyone else? Why accept it from her? I didn't have an answer, not anymore. Get out, I said quietly. My mother's face contorted. You ungrateful, after everything I've done for you. What have you done for me? Name one thing. Silence. Get out of my apartment, and don't contact me again until you're ready to have an honest conversation. She left, but not before promising I'd regret this. 2 weeks later, I discovered what she meant. Compliance contacted me about concerning emails, messages from my company email to my mother's, discussing how to adjust the audit findings. Emails I never sent. Forged emails designed to make me look like her accomplice. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. She was trying to frame me, her own daughter. The next morning, I woke up exhausted but clear. For the first time, I understood that the mother I'd been hoping would love me didn't exist. She never had. I was done performing for approval that would never come. It was time to protect myself. I documented everything. Every email, every text message, every voicemail, every financial record that showed my mother's transactions predated any contact with me. I compiled a timeline proving I'd had no access to the accounts in question. I submitted everything to Maxwell Industries' compliance department with a sworn statement about the forged emails. The investigation concluded in 3 weeks. The forensic analysis confirmed that the emails implicating me had been created using a spoofing service, clumsily, by someone who didn't understand that digital footprints are nearly impossible to erase. My mother was fired immediately. Criminal charges were pending for fraud and obstruction. The company moved to recover the $110,000 through legal action. Her 15-year career ended not with retirement, but with security escorting her from the building while her colleagues watched. I wish I could say I felt victorious. Mostly, I felt tired. Months passed. I threw myself into the restructuring project, and Theodore Maxwell became something I'd never had. A mentor who respected my work without condition. I built a new team of colleagues who became friends. I started therapy, finally unpacking years of believing I was somehow fundamentally flawed because my family treated me that way. The transformation wasn't dramatic. It was small moments. Waking up without dread, laughing at dinner with people who actually listened, receiving recognition for my work and learning to accept it instead of deflecting. Before I share what happened next, let me ask you this. Have you ever discovered that a family story you believed your whole life was actually a lie? Drop a comment and let me know, because what I learned at a family dinner changed everything. It was Thanksgiving. I'd agreed to attend only because my grandmother was hosting, and she was the one person in my family who'd never made me feel small. She was 83 and increasingly frail, and I couldn't punish her for sins that weren't hers. My mother was there, notably diminished. The criminal investigation was ongoing. Her friends had distanced themselves. My father looked exhausted from holding their world together. The confrontation happened in the kitchen, of all places. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, had been quiet all evening, but as I helped wash dishes, she touched my arm. Maya, there's something you should know, something I've kept secret for too long. She told me about an education fund. My grandparents had set aside money for each grandchild, equal amounts for Trevor and me, $20,000 each. But when Trevor got into an expensive private college, my parents had convinced my grandparents to redirect my share to cover his tuition. They said you'd understand, Linda whispered. They said you were so independent you didn't need it, but I saw your face when you worked 3 jobs to pay for your own degree. I should have told you then. $20,000, stolen from my future to fund my brother's, while they called me the failure for not having the same opportunities. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt something final click into place. At the dinner table, I stood. I want to thank everyone for the meal, I said calmly. I also want to say that I won't be coming to family events anymore. I've learned that my education fund was redirected to Trevor without my knowledge or consent. Combined with everything else, I've realized this family has never treated me fairly, and I'm done pretending otherwise. My mother sputtered. That's ancient history. You can't seriously. I'm not asking for permission, I said. I'm informing you of my decision. I hugged my grandmother, promised to visit her separately, and left. In the car, I expected to cry. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Lightness, like a weight I'd carried so long I'd forgotten it was there had finally lifted. Knowing my mother had lost her job, faced criminal charges, and been exposed as a fraud should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like balance, like the universe finally acknowledging what I'd always known but couldn't prove. I was never the failure. They just needed someone to carry that label so they could feel superior. I wondered if there would ever be reconciliation. But for the first time, I wasn't desperate for it. 2 years passed. I built a life I never imagined possible. Theodore Maxwell retired and asked me to take over the consulting division I'd helped restructure, a position that came with equity and a seat on the board. I bought a small house with a garden. I made friends who felt like family, the kind who showed up with soup when I was sick and champagne when I got promoted. I visited my grandmother every Sunday until she passed peacefully in her sleep. At her funeral, I sat in the back, separate from my parents and brother. None of them approached me. I was grateful. Then came the email. It was from my mother. The subject line was, "Please." The message was 3 paragraphs long, a careful blend of apology and explanation and subtle guilt-tripping. The criminal charges had been settled with a plea deal involving restitution and community service. Her marriage was struggling. Her health was declining. She wanted to reconnect and heal and move forward as a family. She wanted me to call her. I stared at that email for a long time. The old Maya would have called immediately, would have apologized for making her feel bad, would have found some way to blame herself for the distance between them. But I wasn't the old Maya anymore. I closed my laptop and went for a walk. I called my friend Rachel, who'd been with me through the worst of it. "What do you want to do?" Rachel asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to believe she's changed. Part of me knows this is exactly how the cycle works. She needs something, so suddenly I exist." "What do you think she actually needs?" I considered. My father had lost his own job 6 months ago. Trevor's marriage had fallen apart. My mother's social circle had evaporated when her fraud became public. They were drowning, and I was the life raft they'd thrown away years ago. "She needs money," I said. "Or she needs to tell people we're reconciled so she looks less like a villain. Or both. And what do you need?" "Peace," I said without hesitation. "I have peace now. I'm not willing to give that up." I wrote my response 3 days later. "Mom, thank you for reaching out. I hope you're managing your health issues and finding stability. I'm not able to return to the role I once played in this family. I spent too many years being hurt by people who should have protected me, and I've finally built a life where I feel valued and respected. I won't risk that. This isn't about punishment. I genuinely wish you healing and peace. But healing for me has meant distance, and I need to honor that. You still have Dad and Trevor. I didn't take your family from you. I just stopped letting you take everything from me. I wish you well. Maya." The reply came an hour later. It was exactly what I expected. Accusations, guilt trips, claims that I was being cruel and unforgiving, that I'd regret this when she was gone, that real family doesn't abandon each other. I didn't respond. I blocked the email address and felt nothing but calm. So after everything you've heard, if you were standing where I am now, with a mother asking you to forgive and forget years of cruelty, would you open that door again and call it compassion? Or would you protect your peace and call it self-respect? Let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts. Here's what I've learned. Love doesn't have to mean access. Forgiveness doesn't require reunion. And family, real family, is built on mutual respect, not obligation, not guilt, not the accident of shared blood. I still think about my mother sometimes. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for. I hope my brother figures out who he is without someone else to feel superior to. I hope my father finds the courage he never had to stand up for what's right. But those are their journeys, not mine. My journey ended in the most unexpected place. Peace. Not the peace of victory or revenge, but the peace of finally, truly knowing my own worth. Of waking up every morning without dreading a phone call, of being surrounded by people who see me clearly and love me anyway. My mother introduced me to her boss as the family failure, but that moment set off a chain of events that proved the opposite. I'm not the failure, I'm the one who got free. And freedom, it turns out, is the greatest success of all. And that's Maya's story. A woman who spent her entire life being told she wasn't enough, only to discover that she was the one holding everything together all along. Sometimes the people who call you a failure are the ones who need you the most. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and let them figure that out on their own. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever been the family disappointment who was actually the family backbone, drop a comment below and tell me your story. I read every single one, and trust me, you're not alone. Hit that like button if you believe Maya made the right choice. Subscribe and tap that notification bell if you haven't already, because we drop stories like this every single week and you don't want to miss what's coming next. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. You never know whose life you might change. And remember, you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Your peace matters. Your boundaries matter. You matter. Until next time, stay strong, protect your peace, and never forget your worth. This is Revenge Red, and we'll see you in the next one. End screen. Subscribe button. Next video recommendation. Previous video recommendation.